All right, tell me when.
Go.
We're live? Oh, we're live. Wow, that was a really smooth and complete introduction. But hey, we're live, and this is Homie and the Dude. We are the father and son. Well, it's Homies and the Dude tonight. Father, son, and compadre, partner. And we are a TTRPG development creating team, dynasty. What do we call ourselves in our Discord chat? This is
The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
We
could start a dynasty, though. I mean, how hard could it be to start a dynasty?
True, it is true.
Just go do it.
I think we're doing it already. I think we are doing it.
We're there.
But anyway, let me just give you some context. If you're here to see this Ask Me Anything on our Airship combat system overlay for 5e, and then in parentheses, also down the road, 1D&D. We are here to answer any questions that you may have, but also to specifically focus tonight on Feats, and we have a little bit of a treat on some art reveal aspects of our progress, of our development so far. So with that said, I think it would be good for us to just, for those people that are joining us for the first time, to provide some context to just a little bit of an introduction to the Airship combat system, why we did it, a little bit of history, and then maybe a little jaunt through our last few months of, of creating this thing. So I'm happy to hand over. First of all, let me do an introduction. That would be good. I'm Tom. I am the father half of Homie and the Dude. I typically am looking at the marketing side and the aspects of bringing this whole project through to a Kickstarter, and the back end elements of, book production. And probably if you're here, it's because I've interacted with you on some level somewhere. So I thank you for interacting in the first place and then being here in the second place. But that's me. That's my role. That's what I play. Bodhi?
I'm the son half of Homie and the Dude. I do a lot of the creative bits and bobs around the company, in terms of writing stuff and DMing our stream and creating our world and a bunch of stuff like that. But today I'm just going to be answering some questions. That's it today. Just answering some questions.
It's going to be a font of answers?
Yeah, just be a font of answers. That's the plan.
Okay.
That is the plan.
All right.
A wealth of knowledge.
A wealth of knowledge.
Exactly. That's the goal.
And then on the other side of, as it were, the world, over on the East Coast of America, Tony is sitting in his laboratory, and is where we often see Tony collaborating with us on a bunch of different levels. And so, Tony, introduce yourself and give us your perspective on this project, as it were, from inception up to where we are today.
Yeah, for sure. So, name's Tony, and I am also the other side of the creative. I'm known as the mad scientist of stat blocks and such. My job, most of the time, is trying to find a way to have our crazy idea be turned into a rule set that makes sense. It isn't too ridiculous. A little too ridiculous. Maybe just a little. You guys see later.
Oftentimes.
Yeah. Hey, one of my favorite quotes, let's add more guns. So a lot of, we've been working on this Kickstarter, getting it ready, doing all that fun. And it's been, God, how long has it been now? Since we started
May.
this?
Since May, I think.
Yeah, it's been months and months. So if it was since May, it's the 5th month. We're now in the 11th month. So a good 6 months. Yeah.
Yep. And made a lot of progress, but a lot of this came from just us realizing that the Sky Realm being in the sky, probably not going to be able to use a car or a cart, and realizing there is no system for it. There's no real cool way to do it. And so we decided, well, we could do that cool way. And so we have very long along the process. Our main goal being kind of our mission statement of this Kickstarter and this product is to have swashbuckling in the sky.
Yeah.
The quick turnaround, the everything's always changing, the chaos of sky combat. And so far, I think we are there. It is so cool.
Yeah.
I'm really pleased with where we're at as well. I think we're ticking through, and just as an update for you guys in terms of where we're at, our example pages are pretty getting close to being done. We've got a lot of nice art that will be used throughout the Kickstarter for you guys to see what the rest of the book will look like once we're funded and things like that. Some of which we'll show you tonight, which we're super excited about.
Do you have that loaded?
I do. I have a bunch of art later, but let's save that. Let's save that for
the
end.
Of course. No.
Let's save that. But yeah, we've got a bunch of that stuff ready to go. But today, the main thing that we're diving into. Please, if you do have any questions, shoot about any topic to do with airship combat or our overlay or anything like that. Please feel free to. Otherwise, for us on our end, we also plan this to be something where we want to give you guys a first insight into some of the things that will be in the book, and we're going to be starting with Feats tonight. So we will be showing you guys some of the features that will come with our book, and these feats are like pretty vital to the system that we've created. They're a big part of bringing the players into the system and linking D&D players and the ability to use your class and character on an airship in a lot of ways. So yeah, we're just excited to talk about those and really get into that with you guys tonight as well.
One of the things I love about, like you define it, Tony, in like basically a statement, swashbuckling in the air. And I love it, and sometimes I forget it. And if I have to describe it to someone in my version of it, it isn't as short and concise as yours. But mine is something along the lines of a simple yet dynamic, sort of like what do you call it? Like when you have the Red Baron, like dogfighting ability in the sky, but while also preserving the best elements of traditional DnD5e combat. So it's not something that overwhelms a combat situation, and it's not something that is completely a sort of a throwaway either. It's a balance of having some strategy, some fun, and some simplicity in using airships to complement combat without overwhelming traditional 5e combat, I guess.
Yeah.
So my way of saying it's a hell of a lot more like wordy and everything, but as opposed to you just saying swashbuckling in the air, which is exactly what I was trying to capture.
There is one thing I did want to build on just briefly, is that this is a system that we would use. And I don't like having to have a trigonometry calculator next to me while I'm running a game. Personally, not my thing. I may be a statistician as my day job, but no, I don't want to play that game on my downtime. So the goal has been to how can we gamify a specific element using the 5e rule set in a way that is intuitive and in a way that is easy to comprehend, so it's easy to use, right? We don't want, the goal is, hey, this is how it works, and when this happens, and you go, oh, okay, perfect, that makes sense. And so far, I think that is probably the thing I am most proud of, is that I could read any of these rules, even if if I write something and I want to share it to Bodhi or vice versa, like almost every time by the final product is, yeah, cool, that makes sense. I may have never seen it before. I may have not even known that was something we had on the agenda. It was, a spur of the moment idea. But the second I read it, it's, yeah, cool, makes sense. And if not, then we change it till it's, yeah, cool, makes sense.
Sketchy saying, hey, what's up, Sketchy? How you doing, man? Pleasure to have you here. Thanks for joining us tonight. Also, talking about rules and feats and how we're making it simple and whatnot. I think let's dive into this. Let's first of all, I think, Tony, you and I just talk about the feats generally in terms of why we put so much emphasis on feats and why it's such an important part of the system that we're building, or why these feats are so important. So do you want to dive in with some of that, and I'll follow you up with that.
Yeah. So one of the kind of key elements we wanted to have here is not to necessarily force players into a specific role. We didn't want, oh, you're the captain, now everyone else listen to. If that's what you guys want to do, great, but the system's not designed that way. What we've done instead is allowed feats, which will give, anyone can do just about anything, but you will have certain abilities if you have a certain feat that ties to one of the elements of the ship. One of the big things you get with feats is commands. I know we've talked briefly last stream on kind of how we've decided to handle crews. And crews can be commanded, but not everyone, based on their skill set in game, can use all of the same commands. And so that's one of the big things you're interacting with. A lot of the feats allow you to interact with the crew in different ways, because crews are a resource, in this system. You need them and you can lose them. So you can also command them to do certain things, whether it's charging another ship, whether it's fixing something, whether it's intimidating another ship. And all of these things are things that the feat unlocks for you, which allows that feat to you to get a lot of mileage out of. Right? Yeah. It's not like, I've gotten this feat and now I can have them do a terrifying battle cry. It's not like that's only going to come up once if you're doing campaign in the sky. That's something that's going to be incredibly helpful anytime you're in combat. But you get it, and most importantly, no other player can do it unless they also have that feat. So you get this cool thing that you can do that benefits everyone, and it's something that stays relevant in the majority of situations.
I think to build on that as well, one of the other awesome parts of the feat system that we have is a lot of these feats allow you to build in either character growth or already pre-built backstory. So, if you take our pilot feat, for example, that might be something that if you take right at the beginning of the game, your character might have a history of being a pilot. They might have done some time being a pilot of their own Sky Zephyr airship, and that can influence your whole writing process and the whole character creation process very much. Not to mention, in the middle of a game, it's not a far stretch to be like, well, I'm going to take this feat on because my character has been doing a lot of piloting recently. I have been taking the wheel for the team here, so it makes sense that I'm actually going to try and take the pilot's feat and use it. And like Tony said, it's something that we really connected with our air crew system. We felt like very few people in their systems have like a really good connective thing for the players and the crew, because the crew felt either like they were so far in the background that it wasn't relevant, or that they were so far in the foreground that you were using like actions in initiative taken up by unnamed NPCs that are not doing anything on the ship. And so we tried to find this middle balance by creating these feats that allow you to not only have badass things that you can do personally, but also give you, in some cases, commands that you can give to not unnamed NPC crew members around you to enhance combat. And most of those are done as a bonus action. What I'll do quickly is I'll just pull up on screen to start off with our one feat that we're going to show you today, and this is our Navigator's feat. This one actually doesn't come with any commands. We will be showing you one with some commands in a minute, but this is just so you can get an idea of like the kind of general structure that we're going, and the like the thought process, and just to kind of tease you guys into thinking about what you can maybe do with this, and how you could use it. So
can I ask a question?
Yes, please go for it.
Because I know when I'm interacting with folks, we have different degrees of people that are like very, very experienced in D&D and other people that are more along the lines of beginners and they're just entering the game. So can I take that? And I'm actually asking legitimately for myself as well, but I will play the role of a beginner. It just so happens those two things are concurrent. But when we talk about feats, if you're a new DM or if you're a player, is it something that you would explore in the creation of your character and the backstory of your character initially? Is it something, because I'm almost picturing like, you know how in The Princess Bride where it's
Nice
not in,
reference.
yeah, well, where they're sword fighting, and then all of a sudden he is the prince basically, flips he's the boy. What's his name? Wesley. Yeah, fucking Wesley.
By the way, spoilers for Princess Bride.
Yeah,
spoilers for Princess Bride. Throw it out there.
Yeah. Dread Pirate. Right. So he throws his sword up in the middle and says, "I'd like to just tell you that I've been fighting. You know, this has been a great fight, but I'm actually left-handed." Dun, da, da, da.
Yeah,
and so here's the question. Like as you were explaining that, Boats, I was wondering, like, could an NPC or even a PC have a hidden feat that at some point they're like, "Oh yeah, I actually do know how to steer a ship. Like I used to do that as a kid." So I guess the overall question is, can you just introduce how feats would be introduced in a game, either before, during, whatever, through the arc of a story?
I'll shoot you this one. Yeah. I think to answer your question, that's in a lot of cases not up for neither Tony nor I to decide. It's up to each DM and each player to decide how that relationship with feats works, because feats can be in some cases given out by DMs kind of like inspiration if they feel like the moment in the plot justifies giving your character a feat. Then and I've done that. When you got, for example, when Geo got channeling Lux and Tenebris.
Oh yeah.
That's a moment where I gave you a feat that is because of a plot point that happened in our game. So that's one way that you can do it. But it can also be something that you take at the beginning of the game. Some DMs allow you to take an extra feat at the beginning of a game, and if that's the case, then taking one of those feats can very much inform backstory of that. In terms of your question about a secret feat, all characters' stuff should reasonably be secret in a sense of that. When you first meet a person, if we're talking about any campaign that starts, at the beginning of the campaign, you shouldn't know any person unless they're your sibling that you've grown up with, like fully, that you meet in the party. Do you know what I mean? Like, just like in real life, when you meet someone,
you don't have their resume in front of you.
No, exactly. You got to spend a couple years getting to know them properly. So yes, everyone should be keeping most of their feats and everything like that to themselves, and for metagaming reasons as well. So yes, you could reveal, when you do step on an airship, you don't have to outright, be like, haha, I am a pilot of the greatest navy ever. You could actually be really disgruntled about that. That navy might now be a murderous horde of pirates, and you were a part of it once, and
not so proud to reveal that.
Yeah, it's something that when the time comes up, you do reveal, and I think, again, that comes down to how the DM wants to play it, what kind of rules and regulations they have as a DM, and then, that relationship between the player and the character when you feel it's appropriate to take a feat. Same as like a spell, like a lot of people talk about, how do you gain spells? Is it just something at, at a level you gain some spells? Is it something where you could make it as, we read a comment that could literally be, you're making checks to try and observe people do the spell so that you can learn the spell. And then, from there, you're learning a new spell. And, at that point, it takes away spell restrictions if we're really talking about it. Because if you see a fucking bard casting a spell and you're going to, as a wizard, going to try and learn his spell, do you know what I mean? Unless your DM is then also like, well, you try and learn it, but because you're not a bard, you can't. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of those that's really down to the DM and whatnot. What do you think?
Yeah. The thing that I would add is how these feats are used in your game is completely up to you. You want to do a level 5 campaign and you've got the players, the characters have been traveling for months, and they, the players have all come together and be like, I'm going to be the artillery guy and I'm going to be the pilot. Do it. If that's what your campaign's about, and you got your own little ship, your little ship companies out doing their thing, go for it. You could easily see a situation where someone's like, hey, I got this cool idea of this character who learned from this ace pilot in his childhood, and then the ace pilot died, and then he had to steer it over so he could, great, give him the feat, because that seems fitting. You could also have that entire scenario play out in game, and then after the ace pilot he was like learning under, who was with the party, gets killed by a dragon or a night devourer or whatever, maybe cloud beast. Then cool, now they've had to step up into the role, and that's right, I'm always going to drop the cloud bees. But you can have it then. It's whatever fits with, one, your DM style, and two, the campaign you're running.
Yeah.
And your general feeling about feats. We don't have anything in here that's like Sentinel. That is like everyone wants to take it every time because it is objectively good, or like Mage Slayer. A lot of these are very cool, but they also work within the system. We have gone through a lot of discussion to ensure that we don't have anything that like, cool, we're just gonna have like a group of artillerymen because there's no reason not to. Right? We want to make sure that there is reason to pick everything, that it's balanced in that sense. Which also with the play testing that we'll be doing after campaign, that'll be something that backers have the opportunity to help us with and make sure that, hey, that's a little strong based on our game. Cool. We'll take that and we'll make sure. That's the goal, is to make it a difficult choice, not a obvious choice. Like a difficult in a good way.
And,
you know what I mean?
Totally. That's why we've made a lot of these feats as well, so that your typical D&D party is somewhere between 4 and 8 players. If you have 4 people, you cannot. When we have a bunch of different feats, you can't pick every feat to fill the hole. So your team has to be very selective on what you're doing, and also what your crew's approach is to combat in some cases. Here, I'm going to pull the feat up on screen so everyone can see it. And it's going to be the navigator's feat. It's on screen right now. Go on, Tony, what were you going to say?
I was just going to add one detail that I think we may have overlooked. I know I did. Is that also not all feats can be grabbed by everyone.
Yeah.
And that is a conscious choice.
Yes.
Certain of these, which we will be getting into, not necessarily showing, but kind of just explaining the concept of a little bit later. We want certain classes to have kind of their special one, something that only makes sense for them, and they're pretty cool.
Here's the beautiful thing again, as we always say, with customization, you can, if you want to include it, and that's why we've put in, these ones that suit certain classes and ones that are directed to certain classes, because it then again makes, choosing your class and, making all these decisions as a team in that session 0 a lot more interesting. But also, if you're a DM and you want to just wing it and let your players use whatever, as with everything in this book, it's optional. So feel free to do as you please, and go about that in a way that feels better. The home bakery. Hey, what's up? Pleasure. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Appreciate having you here. Love your content, by the way. Would a druid not fit this feat more than a wizard? Maybe it's something we're very much open to the discussion to. Yeah, maybe a druid might fit this a little bit better.
And on that, it depends on how you want to flavor the navigator's feat.
Well,
right? Is
it
reading WID patterns and like actually knowledge of, I see that island there, so we must be here, therefore right. Or, is it a little bit more, Gandalf smelling the wind? There's it's how you want to do it. But I'd probably say druid makes sense here.
Yeah, and exactly to your point, Reven had mentioned just before your insightful comment, it fits flavor better too. So it is complementary to. They just complement each other. The feat will color the DM's flavor, the PC's flavor, all of it. So
let's go through this a little bit and just break some of this down. So the first thing that this feat allows a player to do is this feat gives you advantage on nature and survival checks while you are airborne. So any survival checks or nature checks that are being made, you are going to have advantage on while you are airborne, which actually plays into the second bit of this, which is quite nice. This feat then allows you to make a survival check to try and understand the wind direction of one air zone above and below you. This DC is equal to 8 plus your wisdom score. So this is you know you might be wondering, air zone? What, an air zone above and below me? Yes. So in our system, you will be moving up and down zones as you travel in your airship. So knowing what is going on with the wind above and below you is going to be something that's going to be key to you know, piloting these ships, and it you know, definitely an area of this feat that's very interesting and very helpful as well. Anything you want to say on those first two, Tony, before we move on to this big chunky last bit?
No, it's you know, you could see, you know, like we were talking about earlier, here is the fantasy and the feel we're going for, and how do we take mechanics to make that a reality that's fun.
Yeah.
And also, more importantly, in these cases, fun and feels thematic, right? You can easily see yourself building a character if you like this feat. That is, you know, he's a cartographer, he's got all his maps, and he's got his weird little gizmos and eyepiece and all that.
And maybe if you want to make him a druid air genasi, you know, that's doing this, then that's fine. If you want to make him a wizard, you know, a wizard elf or whatever, you know, that's why it's a. You know, it becomes really interesting. And go for it.
I was just going to say, also, when I picture this navigator feat, and I'm picturing combat and strategy during combat, if you have someone that has this feat and can understand different wind patterns and different zones above and below you, you can certainly picture how, if they are really attuned to that, it could change a dogfight in the air. It could really, like, you know, you could sweep in front of someone. You could lure them into a zone that makes them a lot more vulnerable. Like, there's a lot of different ways this feat could be used strategically in a dogfight.
100%. It's one of those chess feats. It's one of those ones that almost gives you a bit more into strategic insight. And you know, the fact that you can make nature and survival checks just generally with advantage means that for like general flight when you're not in combat, this feat is still really usable, really helpful. But then the nice chunky bit of this feat is that with this feat, when at the helm, you can take a bonus action to make an insight check contested by an enemy Zephyr's dexterity to predict its movements it will take at the end of this round of combat. If you succeed, you learn the forward momentum of your enemy Zephyr, and if you succeed by more than 5, then you also learn one maneuver if they have chosen to make one that round, which is really, really interesting. And just to kind of break this down, Tony, do you want to talk a little bit about what some of those like sentences and phrases mean?
I will lightly touch on it, as I'm sure we'll have a more in-depth conversation regarding these at a future date. But like we lightly talked about the last AMA we did, we treat movement again as a resource. And so when piloting, you'll be able to use maneuvers as well as track your forward momentum. So what this ability allows you to do is, from across the ship, you know, looking at the other pilot and going, he's gunning it. Here's what we need to do. And it's like we've discussed, the combat in the sky is really almost a game of chess, with moves being made in movements cases at the end of the turn. And so, as you can imagine, when you don't know what the other guy is doing, you could put yourself at risk. You could also throw yourself out of position. The navigator, with a good roll, a good contested roll, can predict the movement, which gives you and your group the advantage. I know what they're doing, so this is what we need to do to get ourselves in a better position. Get the big gun in range, cut them off, take them out, get away. All these things. Though it doesn't seem like much, so you know where they're going. The way this is done, that's huge.
Yeah.
It's totally, and you know what it reminds me of is I was just watching a Netflix documentary on the America's Cup, which is this
Oh,
very
okay.
competitive sailboat racing, like these big,
Yep.
super techno sailboats, and they've gotten now to the point where they're hydrofoils, and they're just literally whipping in and out of each other. But what you find out is that a lot of the race is the captain's instinct, their ability to read the subtleties of what they've grown up through years and years and years on the sea in different situations with the wind, and being able to understand that, you know what, this feels like it did in that one time, this long time ago, where the wind's going to change, and if I don't tack a certain way, I'm going to get fucked. But if I do, I will absolutely be in an advantageous position. And that's kind of the feel that this navigator
Yep.
feat can give you.
100%.
This is the guy who is like right next to the pilot, and he's just tapping him on the shoulder. Go up. What do you mean? Go up. Go up.
Yeah.
Do it. You both end up on top. Told you.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
if you want that to be your character, he's just kind of this really mousy, like just. By the way, turn right. Hit the brakes. Like
Yeah.
you could do that, and you could actually be. You're not just being a jerk. You were basing this on information.
Yeah.
So it's a fun dynamic. There's a lot of ways you could spin it that make it really fun, and also could be represented very differently in different characters.
Yeah.
100%.
Super fun.
It's one of those ones that is, really, it allows you to be an assist man in a way that makes you, in some ways, the hero of a lot of those moments, which is really cool because you're assisting the team with advice, but also that advice in some moments is like so crucial,
Yeah.
for your movement, and, knowing the amount of forward speed the other Zephyr has, and knowing if they're making any turns, if you roll more than 5 on your check, is crazy because you know which way they're turning. If they start going a different direction, if they're coming towards you, if they're going to Hail Mary ram you, having your navigator make that check before the pilot then makes the decision at the helm could be life or death for a team, a party, a scenario.
A ship.
For a ship.
Ship could be
Exactly.
bye-bye.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think to Reven's point in the chat, it's like, you can really flavor that up and be like, I can see his fingers twitching on his right hand as it's on the wheel. I know what that means. He's going to turn. He's getting ready to whip the wheel down, which means he's coming toward us. So we need to go up a level because otherwise we might be at risk of being rammed right now. That kind of that the subtlety of that, reading the elements but also the other ship is could be really, really fun flavor.
I personally, probably my favorite combo for this in my head is the Mastermind Rogue. Where they could literally, in a combat scenario, be giving advice, throwing the long distance help action, and just literally being like a combat conductor of just, I'm sitting here and you're steering the ship up. They're going, better turn right. Make sure you take care of that. Like, just like playing this. Because it would be super fun for me as a player to like have this role where I am like almost playing full support for a ship. I love that idea.
Yeah,
I'm right there as well, and that's why out of all of the feats that don't have commands, that's one of my favorite ones that doesn't have commands. I think it's such a powerful tool for any airborne campaign that you'll find. Here, I'm gonna pull up another feat now. I'm gonna pull up our second feat. This one is our Artilleryman feat. This one does come with a couple of commands, which we'll have a look at, and we'll break it all down for you. But I'm gonna pop that onto screen now. So this one is the Artilleryman feat. As you can see, it's a lot more chunky. There's a lot more information there. There's a lot more to digest. But to
can you
break
read
it,
that?
yes, I can. Yeah.
Holy shit!
But to break it down for you guys, this feat is made specifically for martial classes. So if you're a barbarian, if you're a fighter, if you're a monk, You know, a lot of these martial classes that are using, you know, combat, heavy hand-to-hand combat, you know, weapon-to-weapon combat. This one is made for you guys so that you can get on some guns and start doing some nice damage as well. And we really hope that this expands that, you know, so that you can still, as a barbarian, feel like, you know, you're able to, you know, use that rage, able to, you know, do your thing and still hop on these weapons around a ship and make an impact, other than just having to, you know, be the guy that runs onto the enemy ship and does some bits.
It yells a lot. You can yell
exactly.
a lot, barbarian. That's
Rages.
cool.
Exactly. So, just to break it down, firstly, this feat allows you to add your proficiency bonus doubled to the attack roll using a confrontation station on a Zephyr. So when you're totaling up your attack, the attack roll, the modifiers for the attack, you get to double your proficiency bonus when adding all of that up, which is an awesome one. That just generally means, because of the way that we do weapons as well, the way that each confrontation station is set up, it's, you know, typically the a statistic that we're choosing, so one of the stats that we're choosing, then a modifier from the weapon itself, and then your proficiency bonus if that exists, and that's how you're going to be comprising those attack rolls. So that's really interesting. So next up is the feat also allows you to add an extra damage die to any damage rolls made using a confrontation station on a Zephyr. So again, when you do land a hit, so you're more likely to hit when you take this feat, and when you do land a hit, you get to add 1 extra damage die of whatever that confrontation station does damage-wise.
Woof.
Brutal, absolutely brutal, and it means that, as far as that, you're not losing the impact because you're having to a ranged, you know, thing. And this is the other thing, is some of these ranged weapons are going to be using dex, but there's going to be others that will be using strength. There will be others that are using, you know, different abilities. That means that, you know, even if you are, you know, a fighter or a barbarian that's put a lot into strength and not mountains into dex, you might be like, oh, it's a ranged weapon, it's going to be dex. No, all of our confrontation stations like have different abilities that you're choosing that will apply to use each one, so that it is more diverse and varied, basically.
Absolutely.
Which I think is freaking awesome. Then we get into our special aircrew commands. Now, there are basic aircrew commands that you can give the aircrew on your ship, which we'll go into some other time. And those are things that any person on a ship without or with any feats is able to do at any point, as long as they have a bonus action. And so here with these special feats, they are as a bonus action, as you can see. And the first one is fire. As you can see, the first line is some prerequisites for this feat, which are just some things that need to be in play for you to be able to use this command, not this feat, this command. So the first thing is you need 2 aircrew members alive. Which is really important. So out of the aircrew on your ship, you need to have at least 2 of them left alive to give this command.
We'll be talking about more about that in a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Then the chosen confrontation station must already be loaded. It must be unmanned, and it must be not have the compromise condition. My apologies. So again, meaning that, you know, this weapon that you're asking them to shoot must be already loaded. It must have all the ability for them to go and man the station, and it can't be broken, which is what the compromise condition is, which we'll go into some other time. But the station can't be broken, basically, from combat as well. So those are the things that must be in place for you to use this command, fire. Once you've identified, you know, the confrontation station is loaded, not broken, and unmanned, then you can give the command. And the command once the command has been issued, 2 aircrew members will rush over to man and aim the chosen confrontation station for a single action. They will fire it at a chosen enemy Zephyr station part or creature within range. When manning a confrontation station, aircrew get a +1 to attack rolls made using the station, unless you have chosen our optional aircrew leveling rule. Then you apply the appropriate bonus based on the stat block of your leveled crew. That's a chunky little bit right there. That's a really nice little bit of information. Tony, do you want to break some of that down, dude?
I am having computer issues right now, so I will let you.
Okay, cool. No worries. I got it.
Sorry, my screen's all messed up right now. I'm trying to fix it.
It's all good. So a couple of things that are interesting about that one is, so your aircrew are going to go over. They're going to, once you give this command, they're going to go over. They're going to hop on the station. They're going to shoot it at something that you choose, whether it be a creature on the ship or one of the parts of the ship. Entirely up to you. But what is really interesting that is mentioned here is that aircrew, when they're manning it, they get that +1. So when it's asking for, their deck score, it's their deck score +1, plus whatever the confrontation station's modifier is. So that's just for general use, and that's to dumb it down, simplify it, make it super easy for DMs. However, we do have a more complicated option, which is mentioned, our aircrew leveling system, which is something there, as you gain an aircrew, and if you keep them alive for long enough, they can get more badass, because that would totally make sense, is that if you work with a crew for long enough and you keep them alive for long enough, they would grow and get more badass. So if that is something you're interested in, if you want to go into that level of detail, that will be something you can do. And that's why we mentioned, you start using the modifiers of those stat blocks as opposed to using, the +1 that is aforementioned there. So that is how a command works, and that's how we've broken these commands down. And you can do that as a bonus action on your turn. So any person with the artilleryman feat can turn around on their turn, see a confrontation station that is loaded, unmanned, and say, you know what, I'm going to, as a bonus action, shout fire. We've got 2 aircrew left alive. They're going to run over. They're going to go shoot it at that, and then I'm going to go do my action elsewhere and take care of it. And so that is a big one for a player to be able to issue that command. Go for it, Tony.
It's that simple. That's all I'm saying. It's that easy. You point, and then your crew kind of turns. They give you a little salute, and they run over and do it. Yeah. They may miss, especially if you have the the commoner crew, with finger and nose and
exactly.
those guys. But if you got some elite guys and you're like, fire, and then you get the real stern salute and they march over and do their thing, you're not doing it, but they're doing it because you told them to. So it still feels really good.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those ones that, again, it makes this dynamic in of that, you're now not just thinking about options for yourself. You're thinking about options that the aircrew can do around you. You're thinking about how to utilize the resources around you, not just the spell slots on your character, not just the weapons in your bag. You're now starting to think about, the resource of the crew around you as well, which is awesome. The next command is actually one of my favorite commands. It's a really, really fun one, and it's a really, really wacky one. And Reven has spotted it and mentioned it in the chat. Has said the create ammunition command. So this is something that artillerymen can ask some crew members to do, which is, if you run out of ammunition on a ship, I'm sure you guys have seen Pirates of the Caribbean, where they're stuffing cutlery into a cannon, and things like that. That's, something that is very much realistic and has been done throughout the years of naval combat and things like that. People have, improvised ammunition and things like that. So that's where the inspiration for this command kind of came from. So the prerequisites for this is you need 4 aircrew alive. The chosen confrontation station must have the create ammunition ability. So basically, the confrontation station must be allowed to be able to have ammunition made for it. Certain things can have ammunition made. Yeah. Other things are going to be, like the the cataclysm, the ship ender, is going to be, that's that ammunition. You can't make that out of socks. Do you know what I mean? That's going to be a little bit harder. I think we've lost Tony for a quick second, but I hope he'll be back with us in a minute. So just going through the rest of this command. So once those prerequisites have been met, you've got 4 aircrew alive, and the confrontation station has the ability to have ammunition created for it. Once this command has been given, 4 aircrew members will search for items that may be used to create improvised ammunition for a chosen confrontation station. They create 3 pieces of ammunition for use. The DM may roll a d4 on the random materials table to deduce what the improvised ammunition is made from. Now we have put one of our classic, and you'll see this throughout the book, optional rules that we include many times throughout the books. Once you know what the material is used, that is used in the creation of this ammunition, you can ask a player that did not issue the command to describe how the material is being used to form the ammunition and what it looks like. We find that that's a really fun bit of like role play, character play, because if you look at the table, the things that the crew can make the ammunition from are cutlery, wood from the deck, spare melee weapons that are lying around, and then footwear and protective gear that happens to be on the ship that's, again, just lying around. So, excuse me, getting another player who has not issued the command to describe what this random bit of ammunition made of footwear looks like, we believe will be a nice, fun, bit of role play moment and descriptive moment for players.
Oh yeah. And then if you're a DM and you just want to take it the next step further, you could also have those do different things. If the player describes they have a mace in their inventory and they throw it to them and they shove the mace inside, maybe it does bludgeoning damage. Maybe if they're firing at a piece of armor, maybe, or even better, cutlery. Now it like fans out a little bit and does piercing. Like, once again, we are just giving. Here are some rules and here are some ideas. If you want to take it to the next level, on a nat 20 for the crew after they shove a bunch of cutlery in a cannon, go crazy. That's the fun of it, right? We're playing make believe.
Exactly.
Go crazy. It's not actually happening. Do what you want.
So, as you can see with our artilleryman feat, it gives you the ability to boost your firepower as a martial class. It gives you the ability to command aircrew to fire and do damage at your command. And it also allows you to get the aircrew involved in creating ammunition when you run out, or even when you don't run out. If you just want a random piece of ammunition, that's totally fine. But it means that, when you do run out, again, it comes down to, when you're choosing your team, and if, you're playing a campaign where a crew know each other, and you're choosing your team based on that, are you going to choose the artilleryman feat? Because if worse comes to worse and you run out of all ammunition on the ship, they can still pull something out of the bag. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that then becomes, an interesting choice of whether that's something you want to have on your team or not. And as a martial character, whether you feel like that is the feat for you. I'm going to pull that off the screen now, but there you go.
It reminds me of back in the day. This is before your guys' time, but it was. The world wrestling, so it was the WWF, but now it's the WWE. There was a wrestler called the Iron Sheik, and the Iron Sheik had a loaded boot that he could kick. He had to load it, so he had to kick the tip of it. But once he kicked it, I don't know what it was that was in it, but if he kicked someone with the loaded boot, it would render them pretty much unconscious and paralyzed. And so I'm just picturing, the Iron Sheik's boot being loaded into a catapult or into a fucking, some sort of projectile device that then it lands on, an enemy's forehead and or sweeps out numerous enemy members. I don't know. Anyway.
I have 2 thoughts. One, as a DM, you also have to think about what is the crew eating with if you shoot all the cutlery.
True. Good point.
That's important.
That is true.
2, Tom, we'll continue this conversation off stream, but I think we have a new magic item for this.
The loaded boot.
I'm just saying, you're reading it now. You're telling us about it, and I'm going.
Pretty cool.
We can come up with some sick art for that. It sounds like the guy was running a D&D campaign and then just brought that into his persona. Is what it sounds like.
So cool.
So I mean, I'm down for a cameo. Hey, y'all heard it here first.
The Iron Sheik.
Iron Sheik's boot. As long as it's not trademarked, we'll have to figure that out.
Do you know what I think is something that's really interesting, and something that I definitely want to just bring up as well when we're talking about feats with you guys, is, you know, with all these feats, and we've got a bunch more that, you know, we're happy to talk about with you guys, but we, you know, when we're playtesting this and when you guys are using it in your games, obviously we want you to customize it and make it fit, you know, scenarios for you. We might give you a scenario, but also you can create your own once we start playtesting. And I think, you know, for me, something that I know someone mentioned, Gian mentioned in the in the Discord, is, you know, it's important for feats to not only have benefits, but sometimes, you know, things that are, you know, detrimental to people taking those feats as well. And, you know, we definitely have that with like the Necromancer feat. You know, it can really hurt crew morale when you use your Necromancer feat abilities on your ship. It can really hurt your crew morale, which is totally understandable when we explain how that works. But the thing that I'm interested in is if you guys feel like these are both balanced and useful enough that, like, if you're running a campaign where you are Sky Pirates or you are on a Spelljammer or something like that, are you going to be wanting to use these feats regularly, and how much, you know, that is going to like be a part of the game? Because we envision it being a large proportion or like a decent proportion, but we would really love to know when you guys do start playtesting, once, you know, we fund it and we do start playtesting, what you guys think and how that goes, basically based on how you guys find it. So we're really interested in that.
Well, maybe let's maybe talk about the whole balance issue. This concept of, you know, and I think Alucard the Bard mentioned it as well in the Discord as well. But there's this element of, we want it to be available and useful and helpful, but perhaps not so much so that it's, you know, it's like a work a day or work a minute feat. And there's some consequence to using it too much, perhaps. So I don't know, the considerations of balance. So if you guys can talk about how you've been thinking about balance when you've been creating these feats, would be interesting.
I think one way to answer that, and Bodhi, let me know if I'm going too early.
No, go for it.
But we could, you know, one way is to take two feats. These we're still balancing, but the concepts of them and how they're using the same resource in very different ways. So we're talking about the Necromancer and the Divine Protector. Necromancer, we'll start there. We'll start by being a little shady. As we discussed, the crew is a resource. You have to have a certain amount of them alive to do these things, and if you can keep them alive a longer time, they can grow, and they could become more useful and more powerful and build as a group. Now, the Necromancer is all about using that crew as a resource. So they will have abilities like, if a crew member dies, they could be resurrected for a certain amount of time and still function as a crew, just undead. If a PC was to fall in combat, oh no, my PC, you could point at one of the crew, suck their life force out, killing them instantly, and then give it to the PC. Now, the PC might be happy about that, but if you're sitting there, you know, being a nose-picking, you know, commoner guy, and you just watch as one of the heroes of the crew sucks the soul out of your buddy, that's probably going to affect your mental state in a pretty unhealthy way, which will affect the morale.
You might even go to HR. You might have a conversation, you know, on the sidelines.
There might be an intervention. You know, that could happen. A crew, it's probably going to end up in a lot of dead crew. But even more, like we've talked about, cool. Well, if you guys have been doing this for a while and you're using the crew as cattle, how are you going to get more crew? Like, you have to recruit these people, and if your ship is just known as the crew ender, good luck. Like, you're going to be paying exorbitant fees to get these guys on your ship, because they know it's probably a death wish.
No one comes back. No one comes back, or they do come back and they're never the same.
Oh no, they don't. Yeah. Like And so that's one of my personal favorites. You know, a one you can also give, and you know, a BBEG. I mean, God, you're that you
100%.
watch that happen. That's going to be rough. But on the opposite end of that is another one that's all about the exact opposite. So we have the Divine Protector, who, in order to have, you have to be a paladin or cleric. You have to have kind of that divine connection. But the idea behind them is they're all about ensuring your crew survives so that you can use commands. They have things like, in the event that you do lose crew members due to like an AoE or something like that, you get to roll a dice and that many don't die.
Yeah.
Right? You are calling upon your divine connection, or if you're a paladin, your innate will to protect them.
Yeah.
So this could be huge for morale. Now, a lot of it is kind of it doesn't come up as often, but when it does, like a fireball's coming at your ship and you lose all like the maximum amount of crew, and then you save them all, that is going to be an insane moment. And you kind of get to be the mom of the crew, right? Like, you're the one that they're going to see and respect. Which also means that if you are a cleric or something like that, you know, thinking of character, maybe you are kind of a messenger of your god, and you're trying to recruit more people to Alia or Bahamut or, you know, whatever. And so now you have a small clergy upon your ship because they have seen the power of their god. So they're, you know, one resource, two completely different uses for it, and very different instances in which they would be relevant.
Dead on.
And what I love about it is, so yeah, I know some of the questions coming in the Discord from the Watermen, from Alucard, from Jero, were about balance of a particular feat. What you're talking about is you guys are balancing out the inventory of feats as well, and making sure that there's representation that's considered on, you know, across the spectrum of good stuff and possibly negative stuff.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's something that we want to have a good balance in the feats, as well as also like across the feats as well. You know, like, and Tony, you know, we very much, when we were coming up with the Necromancer and the Divine Protector, they followed one another, because we were like, wait, if you can kill people and take their lives, why can't you just save their fucking lives with godly power? Do you know what I mean? And like, it made a lot of sense to kind of slot that in. And I think, you know, again, it comes down to, cool, are you a wizard that is a necromancer, or are you a warlock? Cool, well then guess what? You can take the necromancer one, and it means that yes, you might not be doing as much for the team morale, but when you need to pick up a player, there's no one better to have on your fucking team than the necromancer. Vice versa, if your guys are all really heavily based on using your aircrew through these commands, you might really want that Divine Protector to keep that aircrew alive. And furthermore, if your players in your, you know, table are using our aircrew leveling system, that's an even bigger reason to keep them alive. So they suddenly become a lot more important, and that role, that feat of Divine Protector becomes massive. You know, it means that, you know, if you're losing aircrew left, right, and center, then, you know, there's no chance they're going to be leveling, and especially if you're killing them as a necromancer.
If you
know,
are the reason they're not surviving.
Yeah. Exactly. So, you know, these feats are very much a case of, you know, an ability where you can, you know, use the things around you to elevate these moments. And like Tony said, dependent on how, like, don't get me wrong, at some point, yes, you could name every, if you have, say you've got a small Sky Zephyr, and, you know, you've got a maximum crew of, like, you know, maybe 6 to 8 people, and 4 of those are NPC, like 4 of those are, like, you know, PCs, and, you know, the rest are like aircrew, for example. That's going to be a very small aircrew. You've got like 5 people there. Like, every time like the ship gets hit or something, you're going to be losing like almost most of your aircrew. So keeping them alive, and furthermore, you might give them names. You might actually really like that aircrew. They might become really important to you. So utilizing these to, you know, pull that crew into it and make that an interesting part of the story as well becomes really cool, because it's then also it's like those moments where, you know, a player saves an NPC, or, you know, kills like a big bad or whatever. That moment where it's not just like, you know, player on player, and it's not just like player on like heavily named, NPC in a lot of cases. It could just be, like you see a random person in the street struggling and you help them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It adds for those hero moments that we don't often, get, which is really, really nice. And I really like that about being able to use the aircrew for those moments.
Yeah. Go for it, Tony.
And we haven't even talked about the commands associated with both of those. Got
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah, of course.
Just to give an overview of our system, I guess 2 questions. One is, can you share about how many feats will be offered in the final book? And that's the first question. The second one is, are you there yet, or are you still creating feats as we go?
We're definitely still creating feats, and we currently have about 8 or 9.
Okay.
Basically, is where we're currently at. But we constantly go, ooh, this would be a really good idea. Let's throw a bit of that in here. Do you know what I mean? And this is a really nice one. Let's throw a bit of that in here. Do you know what I mean?
What do you think the end number will be once we get to a place where the book is finished, the feats have been well thought through, you're thinking about balance of an individual feat, you're thinking about representation, that if I want to be the black ship of the sky, I'm going to have enough like stuff that is going to represent my evil side, as well as if I want to be, this pristine, saver of the sky. There's going to be representation across the board. What's your final tally, do you guys think? Give or take.
I committing to a number right now is rough, because even in this conversation, I've come up with 2 more ideas.
On top of the Iron Sheik's boot.
Oh no, that's an item.
I know.
That's gonna be a fun magic item. But no, like a beast caller, someone who like can, because there's also gonna be a whole bunch of like animals that are in the sky. So having maybe a druid or something like that. Bodhi, we haven't talked about that. Feel free to shoot it down. But
no, I love it.
You mean like a whisperer, like a whisperer?
I almost kind of imagine them like grabbing like a whistle or something, and then you roll on a table and see, maybe cloud bees come. Like you get like an X amount of cloud bees that just come and help you out for a short period.
The fucking Aquaman of the sky, basically.
Basically,
basically
what I'm
thinking.
So it's hard to say right now, because we're very much just like letting the ideas come. I'd probably say we have at least 3 or 4 more, easy. But if we go into a fervor of creation, I could speak, a fervor of creation that could easily double. So it's hard for me to commit to a number when we're having so much fun making them.
Yeah, I think realistically, just because I'm always the grounding, just because, as you guys will find out, Tony's the hot air balloon drifting off into space, and I'm the shitty tether that's like keeping him restrained to the ground. I would say reasonably, we're probably looking at like a maximum of 15. Like reasonably, I think 15 feels like a good top end number of how many feats just like cohesively will work together, and that kind of thing is reasonably what I think. But at the moment we're like at 8 or 9, so we got like a bunch more.
Okay,
we got room.
We got room.
Just to invite those that are in the chat, if any of this is sparking additional questions, or if you had some questions coming in, any curiosities that you have.
Any questions about anything to do with airship combat and our system, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and anything about this. Also, if you happen to see this video and you're watching it when it's not live, please put questions in the comments wherever you're watching. If it's on Twitch, go to our Discord and go through there. But please put any new questions you have in the comment section, and we'll include those in the next AMA, and we'll make sure to backdate all of that stuff.
2 things. 1, if you are watching it, thank you for watching. Get on the Discord so you know when we're doing it live, because that'd be fun.
Links in the description.
But one thing I did want to add while everyone's thinking out of their awesome questions to throw us off, I did want to just share the actual, because we've talked about commands, and I went over the idea for the Necromancer and the Divine Protector. I got so excited to share them, I forgot to mention the commands themselves.
Oh yeah.
So the Necromancer will have a undead catapult, effectively, where if they raise a crew member as a zombie, they will have the ability to magically catapult them onto another ship within range to wreak havoc. So, resurrect him. Oh, we don't need him. Dunk. To really maximize what you're doing there. Now, the Divine Protector will have a prayer of protection, where they will be able to call together a certain amount of crew. We're still debating it. Prayers are important. Praise Bahamut. Personal favorite. Shout out to Bahamut. But they will be able to create a barrier around the ship to raise the entire ship's AC. So once again, feeding into that protection, feeding into that I am an instrument of divine power, and we will summon it to protect us all, versus you are nothing to me, go eat their soup, and then just chunk an undead across to another ship. So once again, fun commands. I don't think anyone that's not a necromancer is throwing undead. So, very, very distinct.
Exactly, and it's one of those ones. And first of all, I love both of those. I think Tony and I talked about the ability to have a undead person run around and cause some shit on another person's ship would be great. And also just the idea of an aircrew coming together in a moment of crisis to pray together to create like a protective shield around their ship, we not only thought would be a hilarious moment in the middle of combat for like a ship to come together and be like, Bahamut, save us from this moment. This is really shit. We're kind of fucked, kind of thing. But we also thought, it's also a really cool ability, that you can do as a bonus action. You bring, you get to boost some AC of your ship. You get to lift the thresholds for all your parts and components for a little bit, and it becomes really really fun and interesting in that way. So that's another good one.
Can you imagine a ship running into Cataclysm the World Ender, and then they're just like, the only shot we have is to pray?
just
literally.
Yeah.
Our only option is to pray right now. That is it.
Before you give us just a little sneak peek of Cataclysm the World Ender,
we've already shared it.
I know, but it's so good, and I know it's your favorite. It's your personal favorite. So, just another little sneak peek. For those of you that might be new on the chat, just know that to keep informed going forward, in the description there is a link to our newsletter of Holding, which has a regular update of what our progress is, but it also has some other elements. It has some free stuff. Just because you're part of the journey with us, we're giving away, for instance, stat-blocked NPCs. At times, you'll automatically be entered into all of our dice giveaways. So we make family-made, big, chunky XL dice that you'll be part of that lottery, so to speak. So sign up to the newsletter of Holding, and also our Discord is pretty active on a daily basis, just understanding kind of where we are, dropping questions in and comments on the progress as it's going toward the Kickstarter. By the way, the Kickstarter currently, in our minds, we're casting forward and projecting that it's going to be sometime in early-ish 2023. So by early-ish, I mean sort of like, March-ish, March, April time of 2023. We feel like by that time, we'll have a great deal of the content done in the book. We'll also have a lot of the back-end research of what it's going to take to make this thing beautiful. I don't know, those of you that haven't seen the cover of the book, it is public now in the Discord, so have a look at that as well. We're really, really proud of the artwork that has been done, and this might be the time to share some of the artwork. We have a few different artists. We have some that are in-house, Josh and Victor, that are working on STL files and 3D modeling and character sheets.
Cover right now. This is the front cover of the book for everyone who doesn't know.
Yeah, this is the front cover for those of you that haven't seen it yet. So this is the work of @Art of Caustic. You can find him
Alex,
on Instagram.
He's a legend.
He's a legend. He's been working with us and has probably created upwards of, 50 pieces of art for this book at this point that are just, whether it's NPCs, it's different character positions, it's ships themselves, it's the book cover and other like chapter full size, almost like spread pieces of art. So we're really, really pleased with the quality of artwork that we're getting. So yeah, there's elements of NPCs. There's all sorts of stuff that you can be involved in the Discord and in the newsletter folding. That being said,
So here's the book cover, guys. Just to kind of break this down for you guys a little bit. You can see we've got our title at the top. This is written in, you'll find out as the book is written. It's written from the perspective of two characters called Galmer and Sappha, who are actually Tony and Mai's NPCs in our world. And it's just written from their perspective as they have, traveled around together and experienced airship combat, creatures in the sky, different types of airships, all this kind of stuff. So it's written from their perspective. There's a lot of nice dialogue bits. We have some fun quotes that go back and forth of us, bantering and having dialogue about some of the rules and some of the stuff. So actually you can see it on the front cover. If you look closely at the ship in the foreground, you can see on top of the ship there's someone firing a magical harpoon. And you can also see someone else steering the ship. The person steering the ship is me. The person flying the ship is Tony. Sorry, the person steering the ship is me. The person shooting the harpoon is Tony. And actually,
not our ship. I'm shooting the other ship.
Yeah. And on the wing, you can actually see Tom's character trying to repair a fan that we currently have broken. So we're super excited about this piece of art, and we're super excited that we're going to be including that in the book. That's going to be our front cover. While we're here and we're showing some awesome art, let's pull out some other stuff. Let's quickly. I'm going to pull up the Thunderbolt quickly, and this is just to give you guys some more art reveal. We said we were going to reveal some art from inside the book, so that's the front cover. A couple of you have seen that before. Some of you might not have. But this is the Thunderbolt airship. This is one of the airships that we will have art in the book. It will be fully stat blocked. It also has a crew of 5 people, 4 or 5 people, and each of those have art and stat blocks and backstory and
STLs.
And STLs, yeah, we'll be having printable files so you can make them into minis. Great point. Fucking really good point. But I'm going to put that on screen now. That is this gorgeous ship that you can see right there. So this is a side profile. We do have an in-action shot of it that I don't actually have loaded at the moment, or we're going to save for in the book. But this ship specifically belongs to a pirate group, and you can see it's quite a large ship. It does have a combination of blimps and fans for its propulsion and its aviation. It has 1 helm. It's got quite a large hull with many deck floors in it, and you can see again that there's fans down on the lower side. You can see that there's 1 large fan at the back, and then there's the purple blimps in the top blimp as well. All of which keep the ship in the air with hot air produced from the engine that's powered by ceruleanite power gems. But this one's really cool. The crew is really great for this one. We've got a really good crew of pirates. We've got the Pirate King. We've got his first mate, who is a pixie. We've got 2 other crew members as well who are very interesting characters and a love-struck duo, actually.
Yeah.
So we've got some pirates that are in love as well, which is really cool. But yeah, this is just overall a really cool piece of art. Tony, do you want to say anything about the Thunderbolt and your kind of thoughts on our airships and shit?
I love them. No, one thing to note is that not only will the ships have stat blocks, but all of the NPCs on the ships will have custom stat blocks with their own individual abilities, maybe some feats. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We just talked about that. But no, so it's if you like these guys and you think they're fun, you want to run them, especially some of their abilities. Some of my favorite we've come up with.
100%.
We were talking about Triple P, right? Just
a
second ago.
Triple P, Zodiac, them lot.
Yep. So you portly flyer. That's all I'm gonna say. All I'm gonna say. No more context. Portly flyer.
And let me also add that these are ships based in the world that we envision and that we've created. However, the actual system, the overlay itself, could be set in a different kind of world. It could be set, for example, in a world that is similar in a sky that has different zones of air, or it could be in space. There's a very, very minor modification for you to overlay or lay over this system onto a Spelljammer, onto another system that is within 5e, and eventually within 1D&D. So what we're going to propose is that by the Kickstarter, which will be next year, early next year, 5e will still be in full force, but we all know that on the horizon, we can hear the drum beat already, like sort of beyond the mountains. We can hear that little drum beat of Wizards of the Coast furrying away at 1D&D, and we know that it's coming in 2024. So our commitment is to make this future-proofed so that you'll be able to use it for 1D&D settings that have any kind of airship, spaceship, vehicle in general combat. So that's what we're pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing to note, obviously we won't be able to have it compatible for 1D&D at launch because 1D&D won't exist yet, but we are committing to anyone that backs and has a PDF, and the PDF will pretty much come with every level. We are committing to updating it and then getting you an updated version for D&D 1 for free. That is part of the package. It's something that we'll be able to keep you guys posted. Once it comes out, we know how many changes are going to be needed. But that is something we're committing to. And then we'll probably do another Kickstarter relaunch for another physical copy. And you'll get a better rate if you had previously Kickstarted with this one. So
100%.
just a little bit more detail for full clarity. But we are committing to this through D&D 1.
And just to go off what you said, the ships and the crews, you can take just the art of both of those things. You could take just the, just the backgrounds of the characters. You could take, some abilities that you like and plug them into some of your own characters. You could take the stat block of the airship and put different art to it if you wanted to. It's entirely up to you. That's why a big part of this book, and we will continue to keep hammering this point home throughout the book, and you'll notice it throughout the book, and also as we talk about it, everything in this book is customizable to suit what you want. So if that means you want to just use art for things, then great. If you want to just use the stat block of something, great. If you want to just use a section of something's stat block and put it with something else, that's totally fine. We want this to suit your situation as best as possible. So everything is customizable all the way through and alterable and adjustable. So it means that hopefully it should suit every setting and scenario that involves, air combat, and can be easily adjusted for ground or water-based combat, and can be easily adjusted for space-based combat, as well as we do allow for three-dimensional movement, as well as also, like we said, all this crew stuff and blah, 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 that can be either included or not included, dependent on how nitty-gritty you want to get, or, how loose and not detailed you want to go with this. The big final piece of art that we do have for you guys today, and we do have a really, really sick big piece of art for you guys today. This piece of art is one of our chapter pages. So we are actually going to be launching this chapter page as an example page very, very soon. But what you're going to see is the top half of the chapter page for our creatures and mounts, or like the monsters section of our book, basically. And I'm going to flip to that now.
Hang on a second. I didn't know you guys were sharing. Where was I during this conversation?
I think that's the point you randomly walked away.
Yeah.
By the way, this is probably one of my favorite
pieces
of art that Alec
Alex
has done.
ever done.
It's just really pretty special.
Cool. I'm going to put that up on screen now. So this here is going to be the top half of a page in our book. This is a chapter page for the creatures and mounts of our book. As you can see from the scene, there is a giant creature inhaling and sucking air inwards. You can see a tiny little Sky Zephyr or airship just kind of in the center there, and coming over the top is this creature's like a light source, like almost like an anglerfish. But this creature is called a night deceiver, but specifically this one is called this name every time. It's Kyoba Samo. Is the name of it, and it's one of our ancient beasts in the world that we have. It's one of these like legendary creatures. It's this leviathan-sized creature that has cities inside of it, and there's many of them actually in the world, but this one in particular is one that we're very excited about. So that is a night deceiver.
That was just sort of like a throwaway line, but can we just talk about that a little bit more? When you say it has cities inside of it.
Yes.
That's just kind of like, it has a little explosion in my head. Talk about that a little bit more. What does that actually mean? So when it's inhaling ships, the accumulation of those ships and those creatures actually form civilizations inside of this beast?
100%. Dead. Hit the nail on the head. So inside each night deceiver is a interdimensional space where the ships and debris that they eat is collected and is kept for hundreds of years. They actually don't regurgitate this stuff for hundreds of years. And so civilizations are formed inside of these leviathan-sized creatures that float around the sky.
I'm playing like the person that leads the story a little bit, like drops little like breadcrumbs, but I know actually where we're going. But the thing that really fucking blew my mind about this when you guys introduced it was that creatures are born, live their entire lives, and sometimes their entire existence is within the Leviathan. So
yes.
Born, life, young adult, younghood, maturation, oldhood, and death within. That's all they know.
Yeah. Is
the innards of this beast.
And
that's fucking cool.
It's one that's really, really interesting, and I think as far as, creatures that so yes, this is the chapter page, this is what the art for that chapter looks like, but this is also a creature you will be able to use in your games. It's something that you can use as a plot hook, a plot device, but also something that is a creature that can be a very real threat to any sort of sky-based travel. And night deceivers are formidable creatures. They're absolutely ginormous. They are, bigger than islands. They are, giant creatures that prowl the sky, looking to just consume things. And that it's something that for any DM is a great tool to in my opinion to plug into the game. And we will let you know we do have a side profile shot that shows the entire Night Deceiver and all of its like innards with the city and like all this crazy stuff. But we're gonna save that for when we're closer to the Kickstarter. We're actually gonna save that one for from you guys until we're closer to the Kickstarter.
That one, I mean, the front view is beautiful, but the side view, and so it is. I mean, I think it was based on an anglerfish, but it is not. Like once you get that side view, it is a. How would you describe this creature, Tony?
Yeah, Tony, give us your thoughts on the Night Deceiver and break it down from your perspective.
One other element that I know it's cool that it eats and has whole civilizations inside its like upper intestines, but another important point is that it is never seen during day. It actually travels the opposite side of the sun in its shadow at all times. So it's also something that most of the time it's very difficult to see coming. That's how it survives.
That's how it gets you as well. That little light. It's very deceptive, hence the name Night Deceiver.
Another element that I think is super fun is that this is also hinting to some super deep lore of our setting. The Sky Realm and the opposite of that, the Land Realm, which maybe you guys see more of later. We'll see. Who knows? But as Bodhi name dropped the Great Beasts, that's a thing going on. That's a thing. That stuff is happening. So which is always fun. As a DM, it's always fun to just be like, oh, and here's the thing, and here's a word, deep lore, and then just kind of moving on. So I'm just calling out deep lore, and then we'll move on. But it's basically a giant whale crossed with an aberration with an anglerfish, and then 2 rows of teeth like a shark. And then like 3 eyes on each side that glow bright red when they actually open, which is terrifying. If they're opening, it's probably too late.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
kind of what I imagine like the nightmare of someone in a submarine or something. Is basically
Yeah.
that. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that the guy in the submarine wakes up with like cold sweat and needs to go talk to the submarine shrink because they have those. I said that they do. It's that kind of nightmarish eldritch horror. It's not something you can reason with. You just can't go up and go, "Hey, night deceiver." No, I mean, I'll take that back. You could try. Maybe you're a bard. Really, you guys are always trying to talk to things. But a lot of fun.
Do you know what I think as well? Like with the Night Deceiver, the beautiful thing about the Night Deceiver is not only is it a creature you can use in your world, not only does it give you a new civilization that you can include in your world, not only is it going to come with amazing art and a really cool stat block, but the cool thing is, even at this point, I have begun writing my own campaign for, something to do with the inside of a Night Deceiver. We're actually hoping to, launch that for you guys probably before we actually go live with this Kickstarter. We've been working on that.
You've been absolutely captured by, your imagination has just fallen in love with the potential, the possibilities of lore within the Night Deceiver and what could happen inside and outside.
Exactly. So I'm very excited about it, and as far as creatures go, it's one of the ones that we're most excited to give to you guys and bring to table. I'm just going to quickly one last time pull up that image so you guys can see. It's as you can see again, it's that mouth front section there. You can see the light of the anglerfish. You can see the 6 red eyes that Tony mentioned, the 2 rows of teeth. You can also see its size based on, and that Sky Zephyr there is meant to be like a small, medium kind of airship Sky Zephyr. So you can see the size of this creature is exceedingly large and scary. So yeah, something we're very excited, and we hope you guys have enjoyed seeing a bit more art that will be in the book. The type of art we're doing for the ships, the front cover that we have, and then also bit of some of the creatures. We'll have hopefully some cloud bees for you next time we do the AMA, and some example pages and things like that. So we're getting really close to having all of that stuff done for you. We're actually beginning to lay out the book and start working on that. So we're super hyped with the direction that we're currently going in.
Yeah. Any other points with regard to feats? Have you covered everything that you feel like you wanted to cover in this session? Feats, commands, all of the above.
I think so. I think I was gonna say, for me, I think, guys, just remember, this is a growing process, especially for people who play test. You will receive a lot of not only you will receive credit in the book and things like that, but you're going to be given a open hand to tell us what you think and and we will listen and adapt this based on that. This is not going to be a case of, you guys play testing and be like, this sucks, and us being like, well, fuck you, we like it, so, it's staying in. We very much are going to, work with you guys to build the system once we fund and grow it into the thing that we all want it to really, really be. And I think this Feats is one of the core ways where we can make this really inclusive, really interesting for all people who play different characters, for all different character types, all different, character races, all different character classes, all different character backgrounds and backstories. I feel like these feats are going to be a big core part of that, and we're excited for you guys to not only test them, but create characters around them, and begin thinking about, using them in your own games. I'm super hyped about that, personally. Anything else from you, Tony?
I was just gonna say, do we want to end with one more feat reveal?
It. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, let's go for it. You got
Stormcaller?
Go
for
it.
Stormcaller?
A good shout. Yeah, go for it.
Go on. I know
Stormcaller.
I know how happy you are right now.
Stormcaller was one of our first, like, all right, hang on. When we first started this, like, what could a druid do?
Yeah.
Like a druid on a ship? Like, what's something? So the Stormcaller will have the ability to, if your ship is in a storm, where there is a random table associated with that, a Stormcaller will actually be able to manipulate that storm in subtle ways. You'll actually be able to roll twice on the table and pick which result you want. Yeah. And so you'll be able to, in the middle of the chaos, commune with it in a way, feel it out in a way. More importantly, you'll also have a command called Rain Dance.
Yeah.
Where you will teach, it'll take a little bit more crew than some of the others, but you could actually have them go through a ritual to summon a storm, which then you get to manipulate. Now, there's still a little bit of, RNG in there. You roll the same thing twice, that's happening. But that also means that the other ship is stuck in a storm, because storms affect entire layers that you're on. So if that's what you want to do, and you want to be like, guys, just heads up, storm is where we're fighting. That's where we're going to be best. You can also, trick out your ship to better adapt that. You could be like, your ship is always known to be in a storm if you wanted. That's a fantasy that you could have here.
Yeah, 100%.
So, another one of my favorite ones. I think that one, as of right now, we have connected to Druid or Warlock. Are the two that have
I think I think Sorcerer is not a bad shout for that either.
Sorcerer too. Yeah, I'm actually going to add the doc right now.
Go for it. And again, this comes back to, it's another one of those things where you can see how, like, all of these feats kind of relate, but are also very different. You've got the Divine Protector, which has a group prayer. You have a group of people come together and it does something for your ship. With the Stormcaller, you have a group of people come together and it affects the area around your ship and the area around your enemy ships. And so you can see that, we're going from, sometimes you need just a couple of crew members. Other times you need to make sure that you have, your full crew available to you to, do these abilities and do these commands, issue these commands, basically. So it becomes this whole chess match of keeping people alive, being smart about how you're flying your ship, being smart about, how much money you're spending on crew, how well you're looking after them, when you're doing, things to uplift their morale, during downtime. Are your crew, are your players, when they get off the ship, yes, they might have plot that goes on to land, but what's their crew doing during all of that? Are they just losing morale? Are they gaining morale? What kind of thing are you allowing them to do? So on and so forth. And it becomes, really, really interesting of how that kind of goes about.
Did you remember to crack the window open before you left the dog in the ship?
Exactly.
These are important things.
Well, like the Stormcaller, your little scenario just, it kind of blows my imagination out too. We have one expertise. So let's say that we are, like, our entire fighting style, our entire like equipment is honed towards fighting in a storm. And I'm just picturing, like, we will fight the first half of a battle in any kind of conditions. It could be bright skies, whatever. The other side could be winning. They could almost be feeling like they've almost won. But we haven't even started fighting in our. It's almost like the Green Bay Packers or the Cleveland Browns in fucking February, right? You're out there in frozen conditions. The ball is a solid piece of, like, granite. You don't, like, the other team is like, what the fuck is going on right now? And they're like, this is how we play football. So let's party. That's kind of. Yeah.
You're simply borrowing the storm. We were born in it.
Exactly. And so, It's just one of those things, dude. I think all around, again, I come back to, we're looking for diversity, we're looking for inclusivity, we're looking for customization, we're looking for,
Fun imagination, like just
exactly, giving you options to create fun.
Yeah.
Is, I think, one of the biggest things that we're trying to do with this.
Yeah, very cool.
One
Nice
of my
guys.
big things with the feats, as we're thinking, even expanding them, my personal goal is for any one person to pick any class and still have a tough decision.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be a druid. But I want them all.
Yeah.
That's my goal. My
awesome.
personal goal. This is my campaign quote. I want you to always have a tough decision in a good way.
Yeah, 100%. I'm right there with that.
It's a great mantra.
I'm right there with that. Also, just a final thing I'm going to say before we round this out. Just a shout out to people like Alucard the Bard, the Waterman, Gian. Shout out to Mackenzie Calhoun. Shout out to all the people, Reven, Home Bakery, all the people that have been asking questions and staying active in the chat. We appreciate all you guys for tuning in, being a part of this process, supporting us along the way. We hope to really ramp this up as we continue getting closer to that first quarter of next year when we'll be launching this. Any help from you guys in terms of sharing it out and getting out there, amazing. If this is your first time watching a Homie and the Dude stream, welcome. We're Homie and the Dude, father and son TTRPG MMA team. Today we're joined by Tony, our co-writer for this Airship combat overlay that we're talking about. If any of that interests you, we have D&D live streams. We also do podcasts where we interview people. If any of that interests you, please subscribe to the channel. But for updates on the Airship combat stuff specifically, we have our Discord server, which has a link in the description. We put loads of stuff in there. We communicate with you guys. You can ask us questions directly. Furthermore, we also have our newsletter of holding, which Tom mentioned earlier in the episode as well. You get free D&D supplements. You also get entered in our family-made dice giveaways that we do pretty regularly. And you'll get behind-the-scenes content and updates on the Airship Combat Kickstarter. All of that is completely free of charge, and both of those links are down in the description. So if you're interested in either of those things, definitely do that if you want to come along this journey with us as we grow this idea and this concept into something that you guys can hold tangibly in your hand and run for your players.
Not too far now. It's November, so we're looking at 4 months.
Yeah, we're getting there.
4 months.
We're getting there.
Quick. Yeah. I know.
Let's do it.
But
what's the next one? Any thoughts, guys, on seeding? And it might be too early to. I'm not saying that we're going to commit to this, but what are some ideas for some themes for the next AMAs going forward?
We could talk about flying in the sky and like wind zones and wind direction and air zones. We could definitely talk about air crew in a little bit more detail. We could definitely talk about repair rules and things like that. One thing we have to stay away from at the moment, just because we're finalizing bits on it, is movement. But other than that, we're pretty much good to talk about mostly everything.
More creatures?
Yeah, we could talk about creatures, of course.
More
Next time we'll be doing an expose on cloud bees, their society, and how not to piss them off. Next time on National Geographic.
But yeah, so we will be showing a lot more art next time as well. Again, if you are watching this and you have any questions that you weren't able to ask as you're catching this when it's not live, drop them in the comments or reach out to us on the Discord, and we'll answer those questions in our next AMA 100%. As we're probably going to be doing 1 or 2 of these a month leading up to the Kickstarter.
Thanks everyone for joining us. This is our second AMA for the Airship combat system overlay that is heading to a Kickstarter near you. So thank you again. We hope that you continue with us on this journey, and we're having some fun. We'll continue to have some fun, and we'll see you soon.
We'll see you in the next one, guys.
Later,
Bye-bye.
Right, last thing I'm going to show you, that Night Deceiver.